Is Exoprimal anything at all like Monster Hunter? After all, these are both Capcom games. I don't know if there's any crossover in the development teams. Maybe. They both run on RE Engine, and they're both major releases. Well, the answer to this question really depends on which Monster Hunter you're talking about. Is it anything like Rise? No, not really, since Rise doesn't require a lot of teamwork or coordination at all. It's more like World. Specifically, it's like the Kulve Taroth event quest, where everybody has to understand the objectives and people have to play a specific role in the quest. So what about the monsters? You might be thinking, okay, Monster Hunter has monsters, Exoprimal has dinosaurs, so no, they're totally different. And you might say that sarcastically, or you might say that with a straight face. Let me do one of each for you. Look, Monster Hunter has monsters and Exoprimal has dinosaurs, so they're totally different. Okay, now let me try that again. Monster Hunter has monsters, where Exoprimal has dinosaurs, so obviously they're completely different games. You can figure out which one was sarcastic. Either way, you'd be wrong. Because so far, Exoprimal has less variety in its monster designs than Monster Hunter has. But these monsters, dinosaurs, whatever you want to call them, they're a lot closer to Monster Hunter than you might think, even though there's not as many of them. I don't know if I'm spoiling anything here, so be forewarned. The dinosaurs in Exoprimal, there are some that are not actually dinosaurs. Some are legit, familiar faces like Triceratops and Pteranodons. I'm still not sure if I said that right. But others are pretty insane creations that never existed in reality and never could exist in reality. There's even a special dino that has little spots on it, similar to anomaly monsters. And it vomits way too much poison or lava or whatever it actually is than is physically possible. So the other major difference between Exoprimal and Monster Hunter when it comes to the monsters, the quantity of monsters on the screen at one time. With Monster Hunter, we're looking at maybe 10, including small monsters. Exoprimal has literally hundreds at a time. Perhaps over 1,000 on a few of the quests. I'm not really sure what the limit is in Exoprimal. It's a number that far exceeds even that of the Warriors games. You know, those Dynasty Warriors games and all those spin-offs. It's ridiculous and overwhelming all at once. All right, enough about the monsters. Exoprimal, as you might guess, has exosuits. So the Monster Hunter analog to exosuits would be your weapon type, like longsword or light bowgun. Exoprimal has suits that are primarily melee, some that are primarily ranged, but what Exoprimal has that Monster Hunter doesn't have are suits that are explicitly designed for specific roles, like tank and support. There are healing suits and status suits and shielding suits. There's even an explosives suit. You can create these types of builds in Monster Hunter, but they aren't the be-all end-all of your existence. You're still expected to do your share of the damage in the quest, and these specialized Monster Hunter builds aren't really vital to completing the quest. You don't need healers on your team in Monster Hunter. In Exoprimal, you're going to have a bad time if you don't have a tank and a support suit in your team, and the game will tell you this over and over again, quite explicitly. All right, so what about the quests? Well, Exoprimal does have quests, but you can't pick them. You do what the AI tells you to do, and that's that. This is actually pretty cool because number one, you don't have to worry about which quest to post. And number two, since this is a multiplayer only game, the matchmaking can make sure that everybody's story progression can get done in a timely manner. Something that isn't always possible when you're playing multiplayer in Monster Hunter. So what about the end game? Well, I don't want to spoil the end game that much until I get to my end game video. But if you really want to know, you can find videos about it already on YouTube. But the nice thing about Monster Hunter is that I can pick whatever quest I want, whenever I want, and try to improve my skills on that particular quest. Now, in Monster Hunter, there's tons of achievements to work toward, and of course, the 999 rank as well. But with Exoprimal, it's not exactly the same thing. Again, you're not going to be allowed to pick specific quests that you want to do. You can rank your character up. You can rank up your exosuits. You have a bunch of different exosuits to play and master and rank up. Monster Hunter's Endgame, there are plenty of activities for you to do. There's lots of things to explore, lots of gear to build. Exoprimal is not going to give you that same amount of freedom. So there are a couple aspects of the Endgame that I was really hoping would be there, and they ended up being there. And the first one is lots of noob helping. This is always fun for me in multiplayer games, and Capcom knows this too. They're great at designing multiplayer PvE games, and so noob helping is still a big part of this, even once you hit Endgame. And then another thing that I was hoping for that actually came true, the Endgame for Exoprimal requires a lot of cooperation. In fact, if you don't cooperate, you will fail, period. That's just how it is. And I was hoping for that, and that's exactly what they give us. It's brutal. You know, I was thinking, why make a cooperative game where you don't have to cooperate, right? Like, what's the point of forcing us to play multiplayer if we don't have to actually work with our teammates at all? So they definitely do this for Exoprimal Endgame. Voice chat's probably going to be a requirement for this. Another thing I was hoping to see, a ton of insane dinosaur designs. There are a lot of enemy designs that come into play in the end game that you don't see during the main story quests. So that's cool too. One thing I was hoping we would get more of, and so far I'm not really seeing it, more independent map navigation. I'm kind of tired of following a yellow brick road to the next objective. I want to have to figure out the map myself and decide where to go on my own or as a team. I understand that you can't make these complete open world maps and with open world objectives, but just following a yellow line from point A to point B to point C to point D to point E to point F and do that 4 or 5 times in a row. I feel like I'm in a semi-rails shooter at sometimes. I want to be able to find my own route and find interesting ways that I can exploit the map to my advantage. And there are elements of that for sure, but I want more of that. So as far as the story goes, look, I'm going to be completely honest with you. I haven't really followed the story much after about 10% completion. I couldn't even tell you what the main conflict is and how it gets resolved because I haven't been watching the cutscenes. But what's going on here is you're stuck in a VR simulation, okay? That's really what's happening. It's sort of like a real VR simulation, but still it's effectively a VR simulation. You get teleported in and out of space and time and dimension, all at the will of a massively powerful AI. From a practical standpoint, it's no different from a VR simulation. So are we going to stay trapped in this forever? Are we going to destroy the AI at some point and gain our freedom? I don't know. Maybe we have it. I just haven't noticed, but I don't think we have. So what I would really like to see is to get away from this VR simulation situation. And what I want to see is what I actually saw in the first few moments of the opening cutscene. All right. What I saw was a city that has to contend with hordes of dinosaurs like they're bad weather. We, the players, would get deployed to these hotspots and we'd clean up the situation. Kind of like the premise of One Punch Man, but instead of crazy monster demon things, it's dinosaurs. So I think that would be awesome to at some point transition the game to something like that instead of playing these war games over and over again. That would give us more freedom to explore and to find our own solutions to these problems, even though in the end we're going to blow everything up anyway, and give me more investment in the world. So that's where we're at. Obviously, it's definitely a game that stands on its own, and it's definitely something that a Monster Hunter player could get into and understand. It isn't the same kind of game for sure. You do have the multiplayer cooperative experience, and so if you love that about Monster Hunter, it's completely embedded in this game to a degree that Monster Hunter doesn't even take it. So that is what I have from my perspective as a 13 13-year veteran of the Monster Hunter series. Jesus, that's way too long. Wow. Here's to another 13 more. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, check out my other YouTube channels as well. Check out my Patreon. What else can you check out? Check out the Discord server, and I'll see you in the next one.